Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to True Sound Studios. I'm Weezna. Today, I'm going to show you guys how to get less room sound into your vocal recordings when you're recording at home. Now, the reason you would want less room sound in your vocal recordings is because most people these days want this really dead, dry vocal, but are unfortunately recording in studios or in whatever rooms of their house that have little to no acoustic treatment. So what I've been finding is that as more and more people are recording at home, I'm getting more and more vocal recordings that have all this room sound in it that unfortunately is one of the few things that is very difficult to get out of a vocal recording so we can get that really dead, dry vocal. So I'm going to go through recording in different rooms of your house and why they would be good or bad choices. All of this room sound is going to get picked up into this microphone. I know at one point it was a great idea to record in a bathroom because it had lots of vibe. It means we don't have as much reflections as there's a carpet on the floor. In here you can tell you have a different tone. It's more of like this nasally sound. So then we get to my studio. So this is my control room. Then I'm going to show you guys a few really easy solutions on how to get a drier, more dead sounding vocal recording without really having to buy or build anything. And then I'm going to show you guys the technical reasons of why when adding compression to these vocal recordings that have room sound in it, why the room sound actually gets increased over decreasing it. So please watch this video all the way to the end. There's a lot of great information in here that's really gonna help you out. Okay, so I'm gonna show you guys me recording vocals in a bunch of different rooms in my house, and then also a few ways on how you can reduce the amount of the room sound being picked up into the microphone. Okay, so I want to make sure that the microphone is always the same distance away. So I'm going to be using this ruler to keep the mic 1 foot away from me. And so you're going to see me walk around with this ruler, but that's the reason. I want to make sure that this distance stays the same because it really does depend on the amount of room sound that the microphone is going to pick up. If I move it much closer, it's going to eliminate a little bit of the room sound. And if I pull it further away, it's going to even capture even more of the room. Okay, so we are in my great room, which is the kitchen and living room area. Now, there really isn't too much in this room to absorb any of the reflections off of all the walls, ceiling, and floor, except there is a couch and a rug over here. So this room definitely has enough room sound going on that would not make a very good place to record in because all of this room sound is going to get picked up into this microphone, and then you won't have that super dry vocal. So now we're in my bathroom and you can hear how much reflections are in here. I know at one point it was a great idea to record in a bathroom because it had lots of vibe, but this amount of room sound would be next to impossible to try to even eliminate enough to get that really dry vocal sound. Now this bathroom's only about 6 feet wide and about 12 feet long, but the amount of reflections in this room is really pretty dramatic. Okay, so now I'm gonna be sitting on the couch and I'm gonna actually put the blanket over the top of my head. So let me do that real quick. And of course, I'm using the ruler. So I'm just gonna hold it up just so you guys can see it real quick, but I'm gonna put it back down now. So now I am sitting on the couch. I have a soft surface below me. I have a soft surface behind me, and I have put this blanket over my head and I folded it a few times. So now I have a soft surface above me. So I've really started to reduce the amount of reflections by sitting on the couch and just putting a blanket over my head. Now, of course, you will probably get a little bit of warm by doing this, but listen to the amount of reflections that have been reduced. And once again, I'm in the great room again, that big open room, and I've really cut down on the amount of reflections that the mic is picking up. Okay, so now I've created this kind of, we'll call it a vocal booth. I put a soft surface on the bottom, 2 couch cushions as my walls, and then something above. Now I'm gonna have to kind of get in like a little bit of an awkward positioning to like get in there, but we'll see if this sounds any better. Check, hey, 1, 2. Okay, so this is what it sounds like inside of the vocal booth with the couch cushions above and on the sides and the blanket on the bottom. So then we get to the 2 solutions. The number 1 is sitting on the couch and recording that vocal by sitting on the couch and having the blanket over you. Now, I know some people will say, well, it's not a great situation because I don't like to sit and rap or sit and sing, but you know, this is just one of those sacrifices. If you don't want to build a proper studio or have a proper vocal booth, then this is a great easy solution, and it's free as long as you have a couch and a blanket. And the second one being the couch cushion vocal booth. Now, because these couch cushions are so thick, they're going to absorb a lot. Now, it's not going to absorb everything. It's not going to be absolutely perfect, but this is definitely going to help cut down on some of the room sound. Now, I do just want to point out the fact that because I had to kind of cram myself into there, the distance between my mouth and the microphone was definitely shorter. It's going to have less room sound in it anyways, but is definitely better. Okay, so now we're going to move to a bedroom. So this is one of the bedrooms of my house. The only thing that is a little different is it is wood on the ceilings. This is mainly all wood shiplap walls. But the good thing about this room that means we don't have as much reflections is there's a carpet on the floor that probably takes up 3/4 of the floor, so it's helping to absorb some sound. We also have a queen size bed in here, which is obviously soft. It's going to help to absorb some of the reflections from this room. So recording vocals on the bed, to actually make this a little bit of a better situation, you can use your pillows to kind of like build up the backside of it so you can get a little less reflections behind you. And then once again, I'm going to put the blanket over the top of my head. Okay, so once again, just making this TP over my head. So now I'm sitting on the bed. I have the pillows behind me helping to absorb some sound. And I also have the blanket over the top of my head, really trying to reduce the reflections. Okay, and now we are in my wife's office closet. Don't mind the stuff in here. This is the only closet we have that I could actually get into. So in here, you can tell you have a different tone. It's more of like this nasally sound, and that's because of the walls being so close together. It creates these resonances because of the walls being so close together, and it makes the microphone sound more unnatural. And a lot of these reflections are so strong in the recordings that I get that I have to use these crazy notch EQs to get out some of these really nasty resonances that you can have in these small little closet size vocal booths. So then we get to my studio. So this is my control room. This is acoustically treated like a crazy person, okay? Every single acoustic panel was placed, sized, thought about the acoustic properties it was going to bring to its specific place. Literally, the acoustic treatment wraps around the entire room, including the ceiling, the back wall. Everything has been specifically designed to make this particular sized room sound as good as humanly possible, because this is where I mix all of the music in here. So this has to sound amazing. Consequently, it also is a really great place to record in, because the acoustic treatment is so well balanced that it's not really adding anything to the recording, and it creates a very natural sound. And that is really the goal, is just to create a very natural sounding vocal or whatever you're going to be recording. Now, the small closet is something I really want to point out, because that created this like more nasally tone because of the proximity, the close proximity to all the walls that were in there. Most people, when they record vocals and I hear this super nasally tone, the first thing that I will ask them is, did you record it in some very small like vocal booth, pretty much the size of the closet? And almost every single time I can guess that just by hearing the sound of the vocal in the room in that nasally tone is typically what is happening. You just create these very nasally tones, or you get these really sharp resonances that really poke out in the vocal recording. All of this room sound is going to get picked up into this microphone. I know at one point it was a great idea to record in a bathroom because it had lots of vibe. It means we don't have as much reflections. As there's a carpet on the floor. In here you can tell you have a different tone. It's more of like this nasally sound. So then we get to my studio. So this is my control room. So now I am sitting on the couch. I have a soft surface below me. I have a soft surface behind me. And I have put this blanket over my head. Okay, so this is what it sounds like inside of the vocal booth with the couch cushions above and on the sides and the blanket on the bottom. Okay, so once again, just making this teepee over my head. So now I'm sitting on the bed. I have the pillows behind me helping to absorb some sound. Now, something very important to know is that the volume of your voice really is going to change how much room sound you're going to get. So if you are a super quiet singer who kind of like whispers, you're actually having less energy come out of your mouth, out of your vocal cords, and therefore there's less energy going to be in the room. Therefore, you have less room reflections. Now, if you are a super, super loud singer that's like essentially shouting, you're going to have, of course, more energy come out of your mouth, out of your vocal cords. More energy is going to be in the room, and then therefore you're going to actually pick up even more room sound. When you have that blanket draped over you, you got to be really careful that, number one, your hand that's holding the microphone isn't going to be moving while you're recording, because you're going to make a little bit of noise that the microphone, of course, is going to pick up because you're literally physically holding the mic. The second thing is that you want to make sure that the blanket doesn't touch that mic, though it just might just barely touch it. To that microphone being so close, it's going to actually be very loud in that microphone. So just make sure that the blanket doesn't touch the mic. Another very important thing is to use a pop filter. A pop filter is still needed regardless of where you're recording it. The pop filter doesn't stop the room sound. The pop filter stops the air that rushes out of your mouth when you say certain words, certain phrases, certain vowels. So literally right now, if you just put your hand in front of your mouth, you can feel air coming out and hitting your hand. Well, when that air rushes out and hits the diaphragm of the microphone, it physically moves it quite a bit. And that's why we put a pop filter on, because it's stopping that air rushing in there and stopping that plosive, what some people call it. So another way to get rid of more of the room sound and pick up more of your voice directly into the microphone is to simply move the microphone closer. If you guys saw in the very beginning, I pulled the mic real close and you heard less room sound. And when I pulled the mic further away, you heard more room sound. And I always tell people, no matter what, to find a good distance. Usually it's like 4 to 6 inches away. Not every microphone, not in every situation, but usually. The problem is sometimes when you get up too close to a microphone, it starts to pick up too much of the mid lows. It's gonna sound just more unnatural. The most natural sound seems to be about 4 to 6 inches away from your mouth. Figure it out for yourself. Record it 30 seconds really close to the mic. Record 30 seconds this far away. Record 30 seconds, and just listen to those different recordings, and that will give you a better idea of what sounds better with your microphone on your voice in your room. Now, I want to be extremely clear. The difference between soundproofing, which is not what we're doing, this is really kind of like acoustic treatment. We are acoustically treating by putting the blanket over our heads, sitting on the couch that's going to absorb some of those reflections. We are acoustically treating the area that we're recording vocals in. And just so you know, this is not going to stop background noise. When you're recording vocals, it's not going to stop your kids in the background screaming from being picked up in the microphone. It's not going to cut down on the air conditioner noise in your room or the cars passing. This is only reducing those reflections to get that drier, dead sounding vocal. So soundproofing is a very different thing. For example, soundproofing, one example would be your neighbor is always cutting their lawn and you don't want to be able to hear their lawnmower inside of your studio while recording, so soundproofing would stop that, and vice versa. If you were to soundproof your studio, then you wouldn't bother your neighbors, your family with all the noise inside of your studio. So soundproofing is not studio foam, acoustic panels, bass traps. That is not soundproofing. That is acoustic treatment. Soundproofing is really done in the building stage. That is doing the room within a room. Multiple layers of drywall or mass-loaded vinyl. You've heard about green glue, things like that. That is soundproofing. If you guys want to see how I built my studio and how to do true soundproofing, There's an entire video where I go through the entire phases of how I built the studio, everything from the room within a room, the framing, the insulation for soundproofing, all the multiple layers of drywall for soundproofing, and then building the entire space, all the acoustic treatment. This is a 15-part build series. It is super in-depth, but it will actually show you what true soundproofing is and what true acoustic treatment is. Okay, so now I'm gonna give you guys a real-world situation. So we have a recording of a vocal, and I'm gonna go ahead and put a compressor on there and show you kind of like what happens when we use compression and we actually end up bringing up more of the room sound. Okay, so here is our vocal recording. You can see we got all these big peaks up here. We got some smaller ones. These are probably little breaths in between. That's why they're much quieter. But this is our vocal recording. So this white line that runs down through here, that represents the amount of room sound that is in our vocal recording. So now if we bring in a compressor and we just take a look at how much reduction we got going on here, it's only about 3 to 5 dB of reduction, which is actually a pretty conservative level. I mean, that's really not very much. Typically, I'm using 2 to 4 different compressors to build a certain sonic palette for a vocal, and they're usually doing at least 3 dB of reduction. So now that we have the compressor on here, I can go ahead and process this vocal file. And we can see this is what it did after compression. This is before compression, and once again after. So we've knocked down some of those taller peaks, and now it's more of a much more consistent level. Problem is though, is now we've actually knocked down the peak level of our vocal, and our room level has stayed the same. But if we go ahead and boost the volume now, because we've compressed the peaks, so now we're actually able to turn up the vocal more. Consequently, we've also raised the volume of the room sound in this vocal recording. But here's the thing, our peak level of our vocal is up here, but before it was up even higher. So we actually had a greater distance in between the peak level of the vocal and the room. But now we've actually reduced that. So now we've actually decreased the range from the peak level to the room sound. Now it's actually closer. So consequently, this compression actually brings up or makes more audible the sound of the room. And that is the reason why we want to reduce the sound of the room in our vocal recording, so that we add that compression, it doesn't do this. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you guys learned something. This is definitely the type of stuff that I really love to do, because number one, I get to, help you guys out, record better vocals. And number two is, if you guys are recording these vocals, to send them to me to mix, now we have a better quality product. And that is really what it's about in the end, is if you can record better vocals, then myself or any engineer is going to make those vocals sound just even better. So guys, as always, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to find True Sound Studios on Instagram. I post there every single day. It's a great way to keep up with what's going on. But otherwise, till the next video, I'll see you guys then.